At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify how language can be used to convey meaning and intention in a poem. Let us start by listening to a poem by Diane Z. Shaw. Click on the play button to listen. Click here to know more about the author. Get Out of Bed by Diane Z. Shaw. Get out of bed, you silly fool! Get up right now, it's time for school. If you don't dress without a fuss, I'll throw you naked on the bus. Oh, Mom, don't make me go today. I'm feeling worse than yesterday. You don't know what I'm going through. I've got a strange, rare case of flu. My body aches. My throat is sore. I'm sure I'm knocking on death's door. You can't send me to school a cool, 'cause everyone could get it too. Besides, the kids despise me there. They always tease and always stare. And all the teachers know my name. When something's wrong, it's me they blame. You faked a headache yesterday. Don't pull that stuff on me today. Stop acting like a silly fool. The principal cannot skip school. Diane Z. Shaw is a children's author and storyteller. She writes picture books, early reader chapter books, poetry, short stories, games or puzzle pages, and non-fiction. Humorous stories and poems are my favorite things to write, says Diane. I try to make them kid-friendly, with lots of humor and a twist at the end. Her poetry has won national awards and has appeared in several anthologies, including Miles of Smiles and Rolling in the Aisles. Welcome to this topic, Meaning in Context. In this topic, we will focus on how language can be used to convey meaning and intention in the context of a poem. As a good start, let's think about what poetry is. Poetry is actually a unique expression of creativity and originality. As an illustration, think about this. An artist may choose oil paint or crayons to paint a picture. A musician may choose the piano or guitar to create a song. The poet, on the other hand, will choose words to convey his message. Learning how to interpret or appreciate poetry may not always be easy, but it can be learned. How? Let's learn about the different poetry techniques. Knowing how to recognize poetic devices, learning to identify just the right form, and learning how language can be used to convey meaning and intention will enable you to interpret or appreciate a poem better. Click here to know more about poems. Click on Tips for more information. Indeed, a poem frequently relies on the effect of imagery, word association, and the musical qualities of the language used. What this means is that the nature of poem emphasizes linguistic form rather than using language purely for its content. Thus, the shades and nuances of meaning can be difficult to interpret. It can cause different readers to hear or understand a particular piece of poetry differently. Click on Tips for more information. A poem can be funny, sad, long, short, rhymed, or unrhymed. This is called the purpose, mood, and form of the poem. A poem can be based on fantasy, real life, or any important event. This is called the theme of the poem. The way you write your poem is called the form of the poem. It can be very rule-oriented or it can be free of rules. Poetry is different from other literary works because of the rules which transform words into art. This is what we call the mechanics of poetry. Even though many poems seem like they were written in a moment of spontaneous inspiration, most poems actually follow a strict set of rules. These rules give poetry its style and characteristics. Just as most music has rules that prevent notes from running all over the song, the rules of poetry help poets with everything from when to use rhymes to how long each line should be. For example, the rules for form might include the number of words, indentations, capitalization, number of syllables, placement of rhymed words, and or the number or placement of lines. If you don't follow the rules for poetry, it's okay. Just follow your heart. This move outside of traditional poetry rules is referred to as free verse. Sometimes a poem will become more obvious to you. If you think of it not as a poem but as a kind of conversation, like two friends talking, but you are hearing only one side of this conversation. Thinking of a poem in this way can take away much of the mystery that can get in the way of interpreting poems for a less experienced reader. The meaning of a good poem somehow lies beyond the words that make it. It is this that makes understanding a poem often so deeply satisfying, but also sometimes so very difficult. It requires practice, skill, and above all else, thought and reflection. A good poem and a good interpretation of a poem should consider a number of poetic devices that poets use to convey meaning. Let's learn the basic poetry analysis and some poetic devices. Click on any device to learn more. A theme is the main idea of the poem or the message the author is conveying. This message is usually about life, society, or human nature. Let's try to appreciate an example. Try to pay attention to the message. Listen to this poem, The Lake of Innisfree by W.B. Yeats, to feel its theme. Click on Tips for more information. The Lake of Innisfree is about a life of simplicity. The writer talks about finding peace and tranquility in nature. The Lake of Innisfree by W.B. Yeats. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and I live alone in the bee-loud glade. Perhaps Perhaps the most vital element of sound in poetry is rhythm. Rhythm is all around us. It expresses emotions. We convey all manner of rhythm as we chat, dance, orate, sing, clap hands, whistle, drum, run, and chant. Often the rhythm of each line is arranged in a particular meter. Rhyme is the repetition of specific sounds in words. Rhyme usually falls on the stressed and accented syllables of words. Usually, the stress falls on important words like nouns and verbs. This will enable you to work out the rhythmic pattern of the poem. Rhythm and rhyme go together because rhyme helps to establish a strong rhythm. Analyzing the rhythm of a poem is not especially difficult. As an example, let's look at these lines of Blake's The Tiger, written in the trochaic foot. Starts with a stressed syllable and followed by an unstressed syllable. Click on Tips for more information. Poetic foot, the basic unit of rhythm. It normally consists of a stressed syllable with one or two adjacent unstressed syllables. The length of a line of poetry is classified according to the number of poetic feet it contains. Meter of a poem is the basic rhythm, measured according to the predominant type of poetic foot and the number of them per line. The study of rhyme and rhythm is prosody, and applying this study to an individual poem is called scanning a poem. Images and symbolisms are used to paint or to express a poet's intentions or feelings. They create pictures for us to see, to feel, and to imagine with our minds to reflect what a poet wants to convey. Imagery is a useful tool, used to reveal or explain the meaning that is in the poem. For example, the word red immediately creates an image or picture of the color red in our minds. It is associated or has connotations with other feelings or images like anger. Let's study an example of how images, essentially word, pictures and association, are used in the last stanza of this poem, Monsoon Rain. Click on the play button to listen. Click here to see a list of symbols. Monsoon Rain by Shirley Gyok Lin Lim. For bed, watch mother uncoil, her snake hair unbuckle, the silver mesh round her waist, waiting for father pacing, the sand as fishes pull from the straits after monsoon.